All right. Hey guys, welcome back. It's another episode of Leadership Stack Live. And tonight I do have a special guest that is going to be joining me. But before we jump into that, I just want you guys to know that we have new episodes in the podcast and you might want to check that out. If you haven't been to Spotify recently, we have been publishing 2 to 3 episodes per week. So this week we published 3 episodes, and that is why you should build your brand. And that's a one-on-one episode with Jennifer, brilliant lady. She's, I think, from New Zealand, and we had a really good talk. And I learned a lot why you should build your brand. This is going to give you a good insight on, especially if you're the kind of business person that is just thinking about the bottom line. You just want to make money, you just want to make sure I get profits that I'm able to provide for my people day in and day out, month in and month out. And you're not thinking about your brand, you don't really care much about your brand, you might want to tune into this episode. And we also have how to turn your hobby into a business. We got a lot of views. Well, we got a handful of views already in YouTube for this, but we also got a couple of listens on Spotify. You might want to tune into this, especially if during the pandemic you birthed a hobby. It could be, being a plantito or plantita, just like a lot of other people out there. Or you, like me, I've gotten into aquascaping, hence the 2 shrimp tanks behind me, and how you could make money out of it. The best kind of hobby is the hobby that pays for itself. And we also have managing personal and business crises, again with Miss Jennifer Cairns. And this is a very good episode for those who usually have a difficult time prioritizing stuff in life, and you forget about the important stuffs and they turn into a crisis. This is one episode that you should tune into. Okay, if you haven't followed us on YouTube, this is also all on YouTube. If you're not the auditory type of learner, you want a more visual approach, we do have the video recordings all uploaded in the YouTube channel of our Leadership Stack team. Okay, so enough with the suspense. I am going to introduce my co-speaker, my co-host today, and her name is Lian Lacaba. If you don't know, she is the CEO of 2XU Executive Services. She's a career coach known as the Virtual Ate in YouTube. She is also a content creator, such as myself. You might want to check out her website and her YouTube channel. Her website is leanlai, leanlai.com. That's her website. You might want to check her out there. Or just search for her in YouTube, The Virtual Ate. Napaka Filipino, no, yours truly. And she's also a published author of her own book. Hey, Lian, welcome to the show.
Hey Sean. Hi everyone. Super excited to be here.
All right. And we got an hour. And I know an hour may not seem like it's long enough for the slew of different questions that we have right now. So we got to jump right into it.
Yep.
First question is, how did you figure out the kind of leader that you want to be? Since a lot of people are probably tired of me answering this in my own show, I'm going to let you go ahead.
So this is such an interesting question. I've never actually thought about this. So I remember there was a time in my life where so more background. The reason why I'm virtual ate is because I'm the eldest of 4 and eldest of 10 cousins. So I've always been used to being the leader, used to be always being the person who's right, just because I usually was, because it was ate. But then when I started actually managing people, it was such a different experience of having to acknowledge that I really need to hire people who are smarter than me. I can't be the smartest person in the room. So I did start off as kind of really, and I'll admit it, and people who I used to manage, I'm so sorry, because that was my mindset. I used to be just a really bad manager. I was just like, oh, just do this because I say so. Or I would be, I never really did micromanaging part. I'm glad I didn't, but that I went through having to see myself as a bad manager or a bad leader before I made the switch of like, okay, no, I don't want to be this. I also studied a bunch of books. I studied like Mind Valley. I studied Simon Sinek. I studied so many mentors of mine that I love. I still study them until now to decide who I wanted to be as a leader. And that's basically becoming a person who just keeps in mind that people are human. The people I work with are human. The people I hire and manage are human. And I kind of am kind of just their coach of like, okay, this way, this way, this way. I'm like, oh, you can try this one, and like helping them out along the way wherever they want to go.
That's a very good answer. And I would answer it probably in the same way. Just read and listen to people who you want to emulate. So
Mm-hmm.
mine would be Dave Ramsey, John Maxwell. It's not as if we want to be, one is to one them, but there are
Mm-hmm.
principles in their leadership that are just something to behold and
Yep.
something that you can't just turn a blind eye to because it works and it's human and it's what people are looking for in a leader today. So really
Exactly.
good answer there. Next question, do you separate your personal values from the values of the company you're managing? How do you prevent burnout as a leader of a young company? So that's two questions right there for you.
Yeah. Um, so that was the other interesting lesson that I had to learn also very early on when I became CEO of a different company. I became CEO of a US publishing company before. And one of the things that I had to learn was I couldn't be I did have to do that separation of my personal values and then the company values because they had to be two separate things. So when I started to XU, I kind of grabbed the same thing of my values are this, but everyone else don't does. I had to put in the flexibility to have them other people be open to being themselves. Like for example, right now into XU, our main like five company values is someone who is kindly confident. You know who you are, but you have the empathy to show up depending on who you're talking to. We have passionately curious. You're an FBI and a BDO at the same time. You find the information and you find ways to get that. We have passionate someone who's passionately curious. I'm now repeating some of them. For some reason, my brain just went blank. We have tribe with superheroes. We have basically. I picked five values that I knew that if these are the kind of people that we have, we can succeed no matter what other values that they have. And for me, like my own values are like curiosity, passion, creativity. I didn't have to put all of that inside of 2XU because I needed to have that gap of knowing that there's going to be a lot of different people who are going to come across our company, whether that's going to be our clients or the people that we hire. And I had to make that space. And then, how do you prevent burnout as a leader of a young company? Very interesting question, as I'm currently going through a burnout. But how I manage it is usually I just take a break. That's like next week. My calendar is literally do not book a meeting. That's more of a reminder for me, not for anyone else, because I keep doing that of like, oh, I'm take a day off. Like, no, I can add one more meeting. It's a really bad habit that I'm trying to break. But how I manage is take a break. I read. I go for a walk. I watch funny videos, or I play like The Sims 4. So find the things that you love to do. Like one of the things that I have now, and if I can find it, it would be really cool. But I have a post-it note where I just roll a Dungeons and Dragons dice, and it means something to me. Like if I'm really burnt out, I roll it and I'm like, oh, read a book. So I just actually plop down and read a book, or play The Sims 4 and I actually play it. So it's finding the things that you love and making time to actually do them. It's just the simplest way to avoid burnout, and of course surrounding yourself with the best people.
That's a really fantastic answer, and I couldn't agree more. And this is why doing AMAs with a co-host is very good and very interesting because we have different perspectives.
Mhm.
So, for my take on the first question is with SEO Hacker, when you say personal values and the values of the company you're managing, with SEO Hacker, since I'm also the founder, all of the values stemmed from my values. Now, like Leon, I didn't import all of my values into them, but what I really wanted to affect the culture of the team, that's what I injected. So we hire by them, we fire by them, we reward by them, we penalize by them. So everyone has to uphold them. Now, not everyone is perfect in all of our six company values. Some people are stronger in some of them,
Yep.
some people are weaker in some of them, and that's okay. That's what makes a good team, when we're strong where other people are weak at, and vice versa. So in my case, that's how we did it, and we do expect that everyone in the team would uphold it. In fact, I've shared this before. We memorize our core values and we recite them every week, like a football or a
Mm.
basketball team, because we're playing to win. Burnout, I'm the same as Leon. Just take a break, take a breather, block off a specific day or weekend. For me, it's probably a weekend. And what I do like is going outdoors, going out camping, being in the water, swimming. Being in the beach, in the sea, in the lake, whatever it is. Just going out there
Mm-hmm.
in the sun. That's what refreshes me and what keeps me in my game mode come the workday. And for me, that's a good way to put it, because if you're burned out and you feel like you just don't want to work anymore, it's contagious, and you might
Oh yeah.
yeah, you might spread it to different people in the team. And if the CEO is doing that, then that's pretty dangerous, right?
Yep.
So good stuff, good stuff. All right, next question. How do you prevent the power of being a leader from getting to your head? All right, this is about ego.
Yeah. That goes back to like the beginning of my story of like when I became CEO, I was 20 years old when I became CEO, and I let the power go into my head immediately, and I had to be brought down also immediately. Basically, the fastest way for that is realizing that you are not anymore the person who is gonna create the results. You're actually the support now for the people who are creating the results. That's the biggest thing that I still carry to this day, is that I am only as good as the people that I support, that I work with. That was the one that brought me down, of like realizing like, oh no, yeah, I might have been this amazing employee when I was still the employee, but now that I'm the leader, I can't think that way anymore. It's gonna hurt me more, and it's gonna hurt other people as well. So that was the biggest one of like, I was no one. That was kind of the thought in my head. I was really no one. I became CEO, yes, because of hard work, but I still had a lot more to grow and improve. And also just keeping that in mind of like, I can only be, or the company can only be as successful as the people that I work with and the people I support.
That's very good. And we have a lot of things in common, how we think and our weaknesses. So there were points in my leadership when it gets to my head, especially when people are just straight up going against the tide. It ticks me off. So those are the times that I snap and it gets to my head and I just tell them off. I'm more of a straight shooter, so I could really, pierce some people and upset them with
Mm-hmm.
my words. And those are the times that I would say, if I could turn back time and change them, I would change them and handle it very differently. Um, and
Yeah.
you're right in saying that if you realize that as CEO, the end game is you're going to be helping your people and serving them rather than you being served, rather than you doing
Mm-hmm.
the work, then that really changes your perspective and helps you to realize that, oh, okay, if I let this get into my head, I'm going to be doing this all my life until the day I die. I'm going to be working
Yep.
like a horse, and that's not the future that
Exactly.
I desire, right? So
Mm-hmm.
we have to change and adapt and humble ourselves there. Good
Yep.
stuff. All right. Next question from George. This is specifically for you, Miss Leanne. How do you find the right virtual assistant for your clients? There you go.
I have a whole YouTube video on that. But anyway, so the main one is actually the values. That's the biggest one. Is I do uh, kind of have the like all of the questions that I have, the interview questions when I'm interviewing the potential assistant, is based on those five values that we have. And then the other one is, before I even hop on the interview, is I actually give them a skill test so I can see where their skills are actually at on the tasks that their client would need them to be able to do. We also one of our policies is, once someone's in, they're in. Like once they're accepted inside of our company, we take care of them the best way that we can. And even though later on, our paths, change, they shifted, they're doing this, we still try to part as friends. So we kind of have that as, going in, you're taken care of, and going out, you're also taken care of. Having that cycle, having that good, uh, everyone knows that this is how it's been. we kind of get to have the right people right away. It's easier to filter when people see like, oh, this is not just another, I don't even think of us as a corporate job. This is not just another job that you're getting. You're getting into a company that will take care of you in the best way that we can. And at the same time, you have to show up in the best way that you can, because then that's the only way that the relationship can work. So basically it's just a mix of values, skill, and then also taking care on the way in and on the way out.
And that sounds pretty sweet for people who are going to be applying. And there's a follow-up question about that. How
Mhm.
do you know if they're going to be responsible and able to manage their tasks?
So it's an interesting one, because for me, one of the things that I had to learn really fast working online, being a remote leader, I just had to trust people. Like that was the first thing I had to give them. So if they're not being able to manage their tasks, I know that they'll tell me. If there's something wrong, I can also tell. That's the other side of it. Like one of the things that we have inside of our company is uh, the assistants, even the assistants that are for our clients, they need to send me a daily report every day. Because of that, I am able to catch like, oh, there's something wrong. Oh, they weren't able to manage this, and I check in on them. So it's just a mix of trust, and also having the systems that even if you trust someone 100%, there's still some sort of feedback that you receive that you're able to see, like, oh, someone's not being able to do well as they can, and then I go ahead and schedule a coaching call with them. So it's making sure that you do feedback as fast as you can. This is the fastest way someone can grow. And then just giving trust out front, because no one is supposed to really earn your trust, especially as an employee, because you are literally trusting them, at least for me, to another client who's paying us to take care of them. So that's kind of my logic of like, I just trust them right away. If I can see any red flags, I give them the feedback. And usually 9 out of 10, like 9.5 out of 10, it works out every time.
That's an amazing stat. How do you do it? That's like magic for me. No, for us in SEO Hacker, we do a
Mm,
whole long process of screening our people. And it's not that
mm,
we don't trust them, we actually do, but it is tough for us to like foresee if they're really going to be responsible. And even through the long process of our hiring, we still make mistakes. Like we still
mm.
hire
Oh yeah.
some wrong people,
Oh
and
yeah.
it's frustrating for us. So 9
Mm.
out of 10, that's an amazing stat. That's an amazing stat. Props to you.
It's just like multiple times in my career as a leader, I have gotten to the point where I actually had to fire groups of people because they become toxic, and I was like, okay, no, that's it. It usually takes me a while to get to that point, but now with my own company with 2XU, I make sure that, not that it doesn't happen, because it probably happened, fingers crossed it never does, but like I know how basically I've gotten just a toxicity detector at this point. Like I know if someone's going to be
Yeah.
bad or someone's going to work out. And even if someone is bad, if I catch it early enough, then I know a lot of the toxicity that I've noticed before with the previous employees that we've had, it's literally just a lack of clarity. That's it. They become this way because either they didn't know that it was wrong, or they were crossing a boundary, or that they had a assumption that we never, as me as a leader, I take responsibility, I never cleared out. So then they kind of spiraled into their own and kind of made their own group or whatever, and then it ended to the point where there was just tiny misunderstanding that blew up. And then of course we like I said, I do, it takes me a while to get that point where I do actually let people go. But it's knowing also that people just want to be taken care of. People just want clarity, whether they love their job or hate their job. Moving forward, you like an employer who knows or gives you the clarity to know what to do next. You hate an employer who says, oh, just figure that out. You hate that. So if the way that I treat my employees is how I want to be treated as an employee myself. So that's kind of just my thought process basically on that.
It's amazing. And yeah, toxicity.
Yep.
That's something that you really got to take care of. And I love it
Hmm.
when toxic people just weed themselves out.
Yeah,
When you have a
that is
culture
something
that
that does
just, yeah,
happen. Yeah.
just spits them out.
Yep.
We got a follow-up question. Do you think that the career of being a VA is sustainable?
So it depends, honestly. So for me, I've only been a virtual assistant, actual virtual assistant, for like a month. Most of my career has been writing, editing, graphic design, website design, marketing, and then of course I became CEO. But I see virtual assistant as something that you can slowly really turn later on, as something that you it's just part of your work. If you're not inclined, and I always say this to people, like not everyone wants to be an entrepreneur. Some of them do just want to have a job that they work on for long periods of time. They might do quite a bit of career hopping. But if it works for you, then it works for you. Like if you really want to have this kind of world, this kind of job where you're supporting entrepreneurs, you're literally their backbone, then you continue doing it. If not, then you switch. You That's how you learn what you like, what you don't like. You switch, you find something else. But on sustainable, that really is up to you. Like I can't say, yep, George, this is sustainable. You can do this forever and ever. You might change your mind later on, and that's fine too.
Yeah, that's a good answer. That's a good answer. And her, I think this is her last question. What are your tips when shifting careers from a day job to being a VA?
Depends also on the your risk level. Basically, that's the biggest one. Is I sometimes I advise, okay, are you comfortable with leaving your job right now? Do you have enough savings? Okay, just jump into right into it. For some, I say just find and there's a bunch of clients who are always looking for just a 3 hour a day virtual assistant. You can try applying for those for just part time, because then you can see again if this is something that you want or not. For a lot of people, they can't handle having too much freedom of their time. And I've hired some of them, sadly, and I had to help them out. For some people, they jump right in and fall in love. So you have to kind of see and gauge, is this something that I really want to do? By trying it out, by doing a 3 hour a day, being a virtual assistant, you just clean someone else's calendar or email, or you jump right into like, okay, I'm going to work 40 hours a week for this person. Let's just do this. So on shifting risk level, what you're comfortable with, what you're financially also comfortable with. Don't just jump into it and expect that you get the job right away. And just find and see what you like.
That's good. That's really good. We have a question from Ron. What do
Mm,
VAs do? Ayan. Para sa mga hindi
that's funny.
nakakaalam.
I literally just did a TikTok video that I posted about 2 hours ago of what do VAs do. So I'm
There
just
you
gonna
go.
repeat that answer. Wait, let me drink really quickly for my water.
All right. So there's
Stay hydrated.
definitely follow Leon's TikTok, Ron. She put the answer there. You might want to check that out.
Yeah. So if I remember right, what I said in my TikTok video, 5 things that just a general overview. Like a VA, I always believe that there's 2 types. There's the general VA and there's the specific VA. So specific VA is like you're a graphic artist, but you also support them, or you're social media manager and you also support them. A general VA is the one that usually people know about. Is where first thing is you organize the chaos. That's how I describe it. Is you organize their calendar, their email. Usually, and you'll probably agree with me, Sean, when you're starting a business or growing a business, there's gonna be chaos. So your
Yeah.
support as the VA for someone is to help them organize that chaos. 2 is I just call this writing. So when you are a VA, you help document processes, you help document meetings, you help document reports. So that's one of the major tasks as a VA. The third one is I'm trying to remember exactly what I put in that TikTok video. I think I said basically managing social media. So that could be posting, that could be commenting. That basically is helping your client keep up with the social media to make sure that they're seen. If branding is their focus, then it's helping them in that way. Fourth is research. A lot of what you'll do as a virtual assistant is you basically have to say that Google is my best friend because you need to find the right data, you need to find the right information for your client, especially if they're trying something new in their business. And the fifth one, and it's honestly my favorite part, is when you're a virtual assistant, you become literally a mini entrepreneur without having to take the risk of being an entrepreneur. You get to learn and watch how a business grows or fails. Sometimes it does fail, and how someone can actually get back again. So that's kind of the interesting thing that I love. Why I wanted to start 2X in the first place is because it's so interesting seeing how different people do their businesses, even though they're in the same industry. And as a virtual assistant, you get to come along for the ride because you're literally being paid to come along for the ride as well.
That's amazing. And he has a clarification question.
Mhm.
What's the difference between VA and a secretary?
VA, you work from home, secretary in office. That's basically it. Well, with the secretary, there's usually the devil wears Prada, where she's running around getting coffee, getting errands around the city. With VAs, they're just kind of working from home. They're working remotely. If you want to get them, have them ask them to get you coffee, they'll probably just have it delivered to your house. That's mostly it.
Right. Very clear, very good answer.
Thank you.
And we have a question from Christina: what made you choose to start a company in this industry?
So I started to XU honestly at the point where the publishing company that I was running without me. It was kind of like an achievement of like I can actually step away for like 3 months and nothing would be on fire or die. That was kind of the point where I was at, and I was like, I want to create a service company. I want to create a service company that helps other service entrepreneurs because I see how how it can easily get to burnout if you don't have the right help. And at the same time, which is why I started Virtual Ate, is I want to help 1 million Filipinos to work from home, to learn how to work from home. And one of the ways I was thinking that way was my dad worked as an OFW my whole life. I never saw him, at least I would only see him like once or twice a year. And when I discovered when I was 15 that you can work from home, I was like, oh my God, if my dad knew about this, he didn't have to like leave. We would have him every day of the year. So that was kind of my thought of kind of like the one thing after the other. I was like, yeah, let's do this. Let's do this kind of company where it's a full time assistant. We're also training the assistants in business. We're also training them in leadership. It's not just another job that they're getting, and we're actually investing in them. And then at the same time, the clients know everything that we're doing to make sure that their assistants are high end.
That's a really good story. And so, were you able to help your dad? Just curious to just stay at home and also work from home.
Well, now my dad is retired about 4 years ago. Before I started to XU, he just chose to stay at home, and we now have a coffee shop in Samar.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah,
Even better.
yeah, just at home.
All right. Um, with Here's another question for you. How do you ensure that you keep the company culture consistent despite working from home?
A lot of it is having the communication systems that we have. So what that looks like is I mentioned the daily report. We also have the weekly meeting agenda with the client. So I jump in on a meeting with the assistant and the client, and I give them feedback right afterwards. They also have and this is just funny. They also have their own Facebook group chat that I'm not part of, and it's there. I'm not part of it for a reason, so they don't feel awkward about asking questions. They can ask the other assistants for different things that are their expertise. We also have once a month. We actually do a meetup. That's why we hire mostly from Cebu. Is we actually have a meetup where we do training. We have like really good food. We have, we rent out basic co-working space where everyone just hangs out and gets to know each other. So it's one, repeat exactly what you said earlier, John, of repeating the values over and over. Two is actually living the values, and three is constantly surrounding the assistants with people, with all of the other assistants. So then that kind of keeps getting reiterated. That culture, that feeling of like, okay, we're taking care of you, and I because we just trust that you're also taking care of us in the best way that you can.
Awesome. For SEO hacker, it's going to be our processes. So how we ported our processes from our office work to work from home, that kept the culture consistent. And the main difference between being in the office and working from home is what Leon said: the communication. In the office, communication is immediate and it's direct. There's no barrier to it because you could just tap the shoulder of your coworker and you can
Mhm.
talk.
True.
But at home, you might not be able to do that because your coworker didn't see your Slack chat or Microsoft Teams chat until XR, and or he or she might be doing something at home, cleaning the plates, whatever.
True.
So you're gonna have to wait. But there are processes that we have that make sure that people are in their seats in front of their computer, logged in certain hours in the day, and
Mhm.
we call that focus hours. So you're gonna be sure that you get feedback in the focus hours as fast as you can. It's basically processes that you have. Culture is all about your values enforced by processes
Yep.
in your company. So if you
Exactly.
have that and you're able to port that to a work from home where communication is more segmented, then that's going to work. That's going to keep your company's culture even more consistent.
Oh
So,
yeah. Yeah.
yeah. Here's a question from V. How do you build trust with a company that's working from home?
So I kind of answer that a little bit of like my policy as a leader is always just trust first. But then also on the other side of that, I do, like I said, I do have systems in place. Like we have, hub staff that tracks their time and their screen. We also have the daily reports. We have the check-ins. So it's giving that trust, but then also having like the backup because life happens. Like, family for you, Sean, giving birth for me, like taking care of my family first because I'm in the ate. So it's giving that trust, but you also know you have space for that wildness that life sometimes brings you by having that system of like, if I was, out traveling or if I went home to Tacloban, I know I could just go into my inbox and check everyone's daily reports and be able to like, oh, okay, everyone's fine today. Or, they know that they can chat me anytime as well if they need feedback or if they need help with anything else.
Yeah. Just to clarify, guys, I didn't. It was my wife who gave birth, but yeah, I'm
Yes,
sure
not
you
you.
guys know that.
Yep.
All right, so yeah, that I completely. Hubstaff is a fantastic software. We
Hmm.
use Hubstaff as well.
Yeah.
Dave Navat, the CEO, is a great guy, and I support this company. So I guess I completely agree that trust has to be given at the get go as an entrepreneur. That's the risk that we all
Oh
have
yeah.
to take because you can't you will not know if you can trust somebody unless you trust them. That's the
Hmm.
only way. And it's a paradox, but it's also quite true. And you have to trust your people. We've hired a lot of people who we've never met personally during the
Hmm.
pandemic. And SEO Hacker has been growing, and we've been hiring. We're still hiring. Up to today, we have a lot of openings, and we haven't met like 40% of the team right
Oh.
now. So that's quite a handful. And we trust them and we have systems in place. I guess it's a balance, right, between trusting them and having systems. You cannot not have systems. And I
Hmm.
liken it to the airport where you go to our airport here in the Philippines, there's just so many checks, There's like the
Hmm.
check in front and the check inside, and another check that you got to do, and they strip you down, take off your belt, your shoes, right?
Yes.
I mean,
Hmm.
it's
I
like
miss
we're
that
all
though.
drug dealers there. Yeah,
Yeah.
like we're all suspects. And I teach this to my team that you look at the airport, they're looking for the 0.0000001% that you're going to be a terrorist.
Hmm.
But everyone goes through that, and it's a hassle, and that's because they just want to make sure that that small chance of that happening is it's out of the way.
Doesn't. Yep.
Yeah, it's prevented. And in a team, in a company, that's our job as CEOs. We trust you, we know you're not a terrorist. You bought
Hmm.
the ticket, but you still got to
You're
go
in.
through all these checks, right?
Hmm.
It's
Yep.
the same thing. So that's how I'm going to be answering this. Trust is given, but there are checks we all have to go through.
Hmm. Exactly.
All right. Next question. As a leader, how do you manage a team or a team member that broke your trust? There we go.
Very interesting question. So, like I mentioned, I've had times in my leadership, and I've been very honest with this with people. They know mostly if they ask, sometimes I do forget because I don't like, I don't know how to bring that up. But like whenever people break the trust, there is usually like I always give people the benefit of the doubt. That's one thing that my mom taught me over and over again is always give people the benefit of the doubt. There's always more to the story that you see. And when I was a very short stint as a journalist, I also learned that lesson that people might will say something in the surface, but something else is going on. So usually when people break my trust, I know that something might have gone wrong, that they're either too shy to admit or they're too ashamed to admit. So then I give them that space of like, okay, you admit that this some basically I give them that feedback of you admit that something did go wrong and you weren't able to tell me or you broke my trust in this way. Are you still going to do this moving forward? Of course, 9 out of 10 they'll say yes, I won't do this moving forward. But then the next time that it does happen, you already had that commitment with them, that they know that what they did was wrong and they broke your trust, and they also agreed, even though it was might have been half-heartedly, that I will not do this again, and they do it again, that's now up to them. That's not anymore me. That's not anymore like anything that the company was doing. It's now their responsibility to live up to their words. So whenever the second time happens, usually they're really on the nice, and then usually sooner or later they actually let themselves out. That's one of the things I've seen multiple times. Is then they see like, oh crap, they're not going to trust me anymore to do this. I'm just going to go. So that's kind of the natural thing that does happen.
Yeah, yeah, and that it's always really good when they show themselves the door, because we don't have
Mm-hmm.
to do all of these government required stuff, and
True.
giving
Also,
them
yeah.
something even if they're the ones who screwed up. um
Mm,
Good answer,
it's
good
true.
answer.
Yeah.
I guess for me it's going to be, I am going to have to confront that person about what he or she did. And if the person would not admit, usually, and Leon's right, usually they won't,
Mm-hmm.
we just have to keep a close watch over them. And
Yeah.
out of your I don't know, like 50, we have 50 people in the team. I think, Leon, you also have around 50 people in your team. You-
For 2XU, we're actually less than 20 right now. But for everything else, because I do also help manage the other companies, we're about like 70.
70. Got it.
Yeah.
So, like, with, for example, I'll take that as an example. With 70 people, there, you don't need to like check in on 70 of them, right? There's just like one,
Mm-hmm.
two, maybe five people that you got some red flags on, and you're checking in on them from time to time, right? So with SEO Hacker, it's more like that. There are some people who I take mental note of, and I know that, they, even if sometimes you don't really know if they broke your trust outright because you don't have direct evidence, you just know that something's happening there. As an
Mm-hmm.
entrepreneur, you got that gut feeling. And
Yep.
especially CEOs who have been CEO for, like, I don't know, a decade,
Mm-hmm.
you will have that gut feeling when something's going wrong with a specific team. You just know that there's someone there with a red flag spreading malicious stuff, or it's not good. Nothing good is happening there, and they might be performers. They
Mm-hmm. Oh
might
yeah.
be
They
excellent
usually sometimes are
performers.
even. That's the worst
Yeah,
part. Yeah.
that's the worst part. They're excellent performers, but their attitude is rotten to the core. And
Yep.
it is going to be the best case when they show themselves the door.
Mm-hmm.
So when someone outrightly broke your trust, breaks my trust, it would depend on what kind of mistake they did. If it was a
Mm-hmm.
work mistake and it's not fatal and it's not a repetitive mistake, then usually we just forgive it, and
Yep.
we say, just don't do that again. We'll pay the tuition fee. I'll talk with the client, try to fix
Mm-hmm.
it, try to amend it, and just don't do that again. But if they broke your trust in a fatal way, like, I don't know, they stashed some
Stealing money.
drugs and,
Yeah.
yeah, stealing money, whatever it is, then that's a grave offense, and they can
Mm-hmm.
get fired for that immediately. So I suggest
Yep.
when that happens, just immediately fire them, because that's a problem of character, not anymore a problem of carelessness or
Mm-hmm.
professionalism. When you have a character flaw, it is very hard for you to change, because you and I are not God. We can't change someone's character,
Yeah.
and we
Well,
can't train that as well.
I love that you said tuition fee. That's just such a awesome concept of like, but for me in my head, like I differentiate someone who makes a mistake and someone who actually broke my trust. Those are two separate things. But I love that you said that we pay the tuition fee. We you learned this mistake, you've learned it, right? Okay, now we move on. But like
Yeah.
that's kind of just I that just caught in my head. Like, oh, I really like the way that you put that. Yeah, so that I was just complimenting it. That's really cool way of thinking of like, made a mistake. Yep, you're good. Let's move on.
Hey, I'm learning from you, Leon. It's only fair that you get some stuff from me as well. so, so yeah, that it, and yeah. So for me, when someone does break my trust that way, and it's a fatal mistake, it's repetitive, then we have to serve them by giving them memos and telling
Mhm.
them, you're gonna be on your way out if you do that again.
Legally,
But
we
if
have
it,
to. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, we got to do our due diligence. Otherwise, it's gonna be
Hmm.
very hard to let them go if they want to stick and stay.
Yep.
Um, with an outright breaking of trust, with gossip and slander and just trying to destroy the team, that one is the more dangerous one. And we usually try to investigate by asking around, asking our team leaders, our lieutenants in the team, what do you think about this person? What are you
Mm-hmm.
hearing from this person? Or you have to keep an eye out what's happening with people who are
Mm-hmm.
surrounded by that
Yep.
person's direct
That's a
team,
big tell.
or their
Yep.
friends in the company. And if whenever you name drop that person, people's heads get low, then there's something there. That's a good
Oh yeah.
observation. And you got to let that person go one way or the other. Often they
Mm-hmm.
would let themselves out, as Leon says, but if they don't, you have to make sure that you have enough plans in place to be able to talk with that person and decide or reach an agreement that you got to part ways.
Yep.
Okay, question from Mitch. Can you give us your thoughts about productized services and how one can come up with the right productization plan for their freelancing business in the digital marketing space? I guess when you say
Very specific.
productized services, it's when people can like click on the inquire now or buy now or something like that for a certain service in a package.
Mm.
What's your take on this, Leon?
Very specific question. I love it because it's I don't know. For me, it excites me because it shows me that a lot of Filipinos are starting to think this way, and it was something that I've always spouted before. Of like, no, you don't want to keep focusing on hourly. You want to productize your service. Makes it easier that you are not working for the just directly for the hours. Um, what can you give us your thoughts? So my thoughts. It's amazing. It's when you productize your service, kind of the way that we have it within 2XU. It's 40 hours a week for an assistant, including the training, the us taking care of them as a Philippine government, their HMO, the coaching, the consulting with the client, all of that. It's this package every month. There's no there's no like, oh, can we do it part time, can we do it like this rate, blah blah blah. It's just like, oh, this is it, and that's it. Before, when I was a writer, I would also do the same thing of like, if you want me to be your writer, I will do this and this much articles per month, and that's it. So I wasn't anymore chasing like the hourly rate. I wasn't anymore chasing that part. So on more and more Filipinos thinking it that way, more freelancers thinking this way, I think it's amazing because it's the easiest way that you can get yourself out of having to work for your time. Now, how can someone come up with the right productization plan? One is stalk your competitors. That's my favorite thing to do. Anytime I'm doing a new business, I always stalk the heck out of my competitors. I see how people are doing because I truly believe that you're never really starting from scratch. There's people out there who are leaving like small clues for you to follow of how to do it yourself. And you just that's why I read books. That's why I watch YouTube videos. That's why I go through courses. Is again, there are people who leave like crumbs of how they're able to do it and find the right one. Just test one that fits for you, and then usually what happens is same thing as I said earlier. You find what works, you find what doesn't work, and you throw away what doesn't work, and you focus on the one that works.
That's amazing. That is amazing. I guess that how I did it for SEO Hacker is, and I used to do it hodgepodge because I also started as a freelancer. Like I get all sorts of
Mm-hmm.
Frankenstein projects. When you can't be choosy when you got none,
Oh
right?
yeah,
So
yeah, yeah,
whatever
yeah.
would
I
come my
remember that.
way, yeah, that's what it's gonna be. And I gotta mobilize a different plan for this and different plan for that and different person to outsource for this and that. And it could get grisly pretty fast. A startup is already
Mm-hmm.
chaotic enough. And if
Mm-hmm.
you're doing it like that, where you're not productizing, you're not packaging your stuff, you're just chomping up
Just
whatever
like ad
comes your
hoc.
way,
Yeah.
yeah, it gets even more chaotic. So I guess how I did it was like Leon, I checked out what others are doing. And since I was doing SEO pretty early on, way back 2009, 2010, there weren't a lot of SEO companies here in the Philippines yet. So I'd look at US SEO websites and see what they're doing. And I emulated that all the way to their price points. And maybe that's why SEO Agri is one of the higher end SEO companies here. And when it comes to our services, we do extra mile and as well as our pricing, because I really based it on what people are doing in the US, and
Mhm.
we try to improve on that because Filipinos were excellent when it comes to extra mile service.
Yep.
So that's what we do. And I just put the packages in the website. And wait, when it got traction, meaning companies who would just take my package instead of give me ad hoc stuffs,
Mhm.
then I could turn down other clients who are just asking for hodgepodge stuff, right? And it's easier for me to do that because I already have clients who love the package stuff and it works for them. And right now that's what we're doing. We can,
Mhm.
not all money is good money for me anymore. We turn down
Oh yeah.
customers or potential customers who are asking us to do stuffs that we don't want to cater to or is too troublesome for us to do. So
Mhm.
that's how I did it. And it took years. It doesn't have to be like in a few months. Your
Oh
plan
yeah.
could be for years, and that's not a problem. Ron says, "May I have some of that Samar coffee?"
You have to go to somewhere to get that, but sure.
A VA can't order that for you, Ron, where you're living right
Yeah.
now.
Yeah. Yeah. It has to be like a personal thing to go to.
Yeah, yeah. From Alana, what lessons have you learned from your past mistakes? What lessons you've learned from your past mistakes can you advise to a new business owner?
So
Okay.
there's a ton. I've been a business owner for like 6, 7 years now for like multiple different businesses. So there's a ton. I think I'll pick like my top three. One is surround yourself with the right people, which is what we've been talking about this whole time. Is you could have the best copywriter, you could have the best web designer, you could have the best marketer. If they don't have the right personality, if they're not the right people for you, that whatever business that you're trying to do, that's just gonna fall apart in a few months. It'll have a high, sure, because you have the best people, but then it's gonna fizzle out really quickly. Like I've that was one of the reasons why I had the problems with other employees before was I didn't have the set of values. I didn't have the clarity of who did I really want to work with, and that's how the toxicity started. And how that all of the other stuff that I was talking about happened was because I didn't myself have the clarity of who I wanted to work with. Second is learn from the mistakes of others, which is again books, courses, TED talks. Watching out for the people that you like their books, and then watching their interviews. So it's learning from mentors, even though you never will really like meet them. And then if you can get an actual mentor also in person who can who have years experience further than you and who can advise you on their mistakes, and then so you can skip it. And the third one is to, and this is a little bit soppy and more something I realized as a female leader, not really as a general leader, but like just keep in mind to take care of yourself. Like I am such a giver. Like I have that as one of the things that I know is part of my core. Is just I always should try to give, just as an ate, as like ate, I need this, like here you go. Ate, I need that, here you go. I have to keep in mind of setting boundaries and also taking care of myself and being an ate to myself. Of like I know if I am not being able to sleep right, I know something's wrong. If I'm not able to do my morning routine, something is wrong. So you as a leader, you can only show up as much as what you have in you, what you have inside of you. And if you don't take care of yourself in the right way, you're neglecting your sleep, neglecting yourself, neglecting your own needs because you want to make sure that everything works out fine for your business. The reality is you keep doing that, then even if you have this billion-dollar business, but you're kind of dying, then it's not worth it at all. So just find the things, like I said earlier, find the things that you find joy with, that you enjoy doing, to take care of yourself, to kind of do that refill before you start giving again.
Yeah, kind of dying sounds like a sucky plan, right?
Yeah. Exactly.
That's really good stuff, really good answers. I guess for me, past mistake was hire slow and fire fast. When you know
Hmm.
that the person is the wrong person, they have
Yes.
bad attitude, bad
Yep.
character, you know that they're bad mouthing you behind your back while you're paying them so they can eat and feed their family,
Yep.
then you know that that's the wrong person. And
Mhm.
one of my mistakes was I kind of kept that person for quite some time more, and I should have fired fast, and I
Mhm.
should have hired slow as well. I used to hire when I need a spot filled, bam. And
Yep.
usually
Same thing.
when you're already in that scenario, you just hire the next best bloke who comes your way, right? And that's a
Hmm.
really bad way to hire people. That's a
Yep.
very bad hiring strategy. When you hire, you really need to look at, are they a good fit for your culture, not just for the job. Of course, they have to be good fit for the job. That's a given. That's what's required. But are they a good fit for your culture?
Mm-hmm.
For us, we look for three things. That's humble, hungry, and smart. And we
I
ask
love
them
that.
questions like, for the humble, we ask them questions like, what was your biggest failure in life, or your most embarrassing moment? And if they don't tell me fluffy stuff, like they tell me real life scenario stuff, I
Mm-hmm.
appreciate that. But if they tell me, my biggest weakness is I work too hard, I work long hours,
Yeah,
that's, like, what's new, right?
that's
So,
that's a
and
failure of self-discipline. That's what it
yeah,
is.
so
Yeah.
we see through that. I see through that. Are you being
Mm-hmm.
humble, fake humble? Are you just trying to get the job?
Yep.
And real humility, people will really tell you their stories, and they're not
Mm-hmm.
ashamed to do that. And they will tell you what they learned from it and what they did afterwards. When it comes to hungry, I ask them, did you work in your younger years? Did you work hard in varsity or in school? Um,
That's
what
good.
how what do you think about work life balance? Is that something that is, work life balance is important, but if they put it in a pedestal, that's a red flag for me, because there are a
Mm-hmm.
lot of times when I personally work all the way to 10:30 p.m. even to today. And
Mm-hmm.
if you're not willing to do whatever it takes to win, um, and that's not to say that we do have a lot of those days. Maybe once every quarter, then we have like an hour or two overtime, but that's it. Since we're a 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. company, we don't have EMEA shift or US shift. So it's just
Mm-hmm.
one shift, and we rarely go overtime. But if they keep talking about work life balance, that for me is a red flag, because that means you're not too hungry to join our team. And smart, when it comes to smart, it's always about people. Are you people smart? So
Mm-hmm.
I ask them questions like, what is something about you that irritates other people? And if the person can't
Ooh,
answer that, then that means they're not very people smart, because they don't even know themselves. And then I
mm-hmm.
also ask, what kind of person irritates you the most? And I look for their answers. So yeah, so asking these questions is very important for me now. Before, it was like, um, what do you know about copywriting? How long have you
Yeah.
practiced that? It's about those things. What's your vision 5 years from now? So if you ask generic questions, you're gonna get generic answers.
Yep.
That's one mistake that I did, that I hope you guys tuning in now would not make. So hire slow, fire fast. I hope that helps, Alana. And Nino's here. Nino, thanks so much for joining again. Really learning a lot. All right. Leon,
Awesome.
um, Nino's learning a lot from you. My top fan badge looks so good. Oh, that's from the Leadership Stack team. Thank you, Leadership Stack team. So you guys know I'm not the only person here. I'm just a talent, and my team has no choice. I'm the only talent. But they're the ones running the show. It's not me. Okay. We got more questions here. For another one from Mitch. Can you share your journey? How I did the productization? Yeah. So this is done. I shared it earlier. Hope you got some ideas from there, Mitch. When facing obstacles and conflicts, how do you keep your team motivated? All right, I'll let you answer this first, Leon.
Such an interesting thing with the with 2XU, because with 2XU, like each we only have a few clients who have like more than two assistants. Like most of them are like one to one. So for when it comes to obstacles and conflicts between the team, there's rarely any, which is I'm really lucky to say. Um, and usually one of the things when it comes to motivation, team motivation specifically, I always say that my job as leader is not to motivate but to inspire. It's to keep reminding them, especially when they're hard days, especially when they're like, their family life is mixing with their work life. I always remind them that take it one day at a time, and also to remind them of what they're currently pursuing. Like one of the things I always ask when they're starting out is, what's your big hairy audacious goal? What's something you're currently working towards? Because then I use that of like, this is what you wanted. You said that you wanted this, right? So I'm going to help you the best way that I can to get here. What do you want to do next? So it's again, it's going away from motivating them, like, you want this, right? You want this, let's do this, into inspiring of like, you want this, reminding you that this is what you wanted. So what do you want to do next? So it's more of getting them out of the feeling of I'm stuck, I can't do anything, I can't, I'm just here, into like, oh yeah, I have a dream bigger than this. I have a dream bigger than this small problem. If I get to that point of my dream, this is such a small thing compared to everything else that I want in my life. So it's keeping in mind, again, it's not my job to motivate them. They're self motivated. That's why they're in this company. But it's my job to inspire them, to keep them to see like the light in the end of the tunnel, if they're having difficulties with work, and just taking care of them the best they can. Like I said, when it comes to conflicts, rarely so far. Fingers crossed, there has been rarely any. When it comes to obstacles, that does happen. Again, life and work mix up. But I keep in mind of. I always reminded myself, like, okay, what was your big heritage school again? Okay, that one. Okay, yeah, I'll help you. I'll help you realize that, and then help you in whatever way that I can to get to that point.
I love the Jim Collins reference. So you
Mm-hmm.
probably read his books,
Yep.
huh?
Yeah, I did.
That's
I've read a ton
awesome.
of books, so I don't know. I don't. Sometimes I like spout off quotes. I'm like, where did I get it from again? So
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, I hear you. Okay, obstacles. I'm gonna, since Leon took it from perspective of personal and work, I'm just gonna take it from a professional, purely work standpoint. As a leader, your job is to remove their obstacles, especially if the obstacles are blockers within your team. Like someone else in
True.
the team doesn't want to cooperate. Your job as the leader is to make sure that that doesn't happen. They're cooperating and they understand each other and they get the job done. So when facing obstacles, I take it upon myself and my leadership team to make sure to remove those obstacles so that
True.
you just have to get out of their way and make sure they are able to zoom and do the work that you love them to do. When it comes to
Mhm.
conflict, we have a core value and it's unity. And with the core value of unity, there's five enemies. Number one is gossip. Number two is sanction incompetence. Number three is unresolved conflict. And unresolved conflict is a no-no for us. So if there's conflict, we welcome it, so long as it's a good, healthy conflict. And
True.
the other rule is there should be no hitting below the belt. Don't make it personal. Don't say to the other person that it's because you're like this, and that.
Yep.
That's unacceptable for us. But if you're saying this kind of work should not be a part of your output, then that's acceptable, right? Or if you're going to ask them, why was this the work output and how can I help that improve, then that's acceptable. If two people are having conflicts in the team, we make sure to sit them down and moderate, because if left by themselves to resolve it, the chances of it growing as a conflict is high. So there has to be a moderator. Often one of the leaders or both of the leaders are there if they are from two separate teams. Yeah, we have a team that's always, having friction in the company. And we got to watch these two teams because they're like, the American football, just trying to butt heads with each other. And
Mhm.
we want to make sure that when they butt heads, and they can butt heads, it's okay, but keep it professional, right? Don't make it
Yep.
personal. How do you keep them motivated? If they see that you yourself are leading from the front and working hard,
Hmm.
and you really bring home the bacon, you make sure they get paid on time, they get paid well. That matters a lot. People get motivated when you actually keep your word. Pay them
Yep.
right, pay them on time, give them your vision and how well you're growing. So with SEO Hacker, we have this monthly report from the account management team. How much revenue, how much new accounts did we bring in? How many accounts did we lose? Where
Mm.
are we right now? And that helps to keep the team motivated in a way, because they know, oh, okay, everything we're doing, it matters.
Yep.
What I'm doing, it matters because this is what's happening right now. And our CEO, he's working his ass off. He's not like chilling off in the beach somewhere, right? And
Yep.
expecting me to work. So that is something that helps motivate a team.
True. True.
From Pam, what are the most important attributes of successful leaders today? All right. Very good question.
Really
What
good
is it for
question.
you, Leon?
Someone's always curious. That's the biggest, like that's my one of my core values is if you want to be successful at anything, whether you want to be a successful leader, you want to be a successful entrepreneur, or you just want to be successful at your job, you have to stay curious. You have to be that kind of person who what you see isn't, it's not what you get. You know that there's always something that you could chase, or you can improve, or you can upgrade, or even replace altogether. Because if you want to really get to where you want to be, you have to be open that the world has so many freaking combinations. I'm always amazed by, like, when I hear like, oh, this culture does that, I'm like, what? That doesn't make sense to me, but if it works for them, sure. So there's always the, what you, every one of us is living in a box, and and then there's the, cultural box, and then there's the country box, and then there's like the Asia box, for example, for us. And there's always more and more combinations that you never see. So if you're always curious, right, if you're always trying to see if there's a better way to do what you're currently doing, it's going to be so much easier for you to succeed, especially as a leader, because then you are also open to the different personalities that you'll have, the different projects, the different, the client versus the, at least for me, client versus assistant kind of personality. Whenever I see that there is some sort of schism, basically, not full conflict between like a client and an assistant, I go in, I'm like, why is this happening? What is something that you're saying that they're understanding different just because of the cultural differences? So it's giving that space that there's always something to learn, that there's always something to explore and dive into, and to never really take things in the, just what it as what it is.
I love that curiosity is one of the important things for you, because I do consider leaders to be learners. So
Mm-hmm.
that's
Exactly.
directly in line. If you're not learning something new, you're probably not leading, because
Mm-hmm.
maybe someone in your team is, and they're going to be overtaking you, and
Yeah.
you're not going to be leading anymore. You're going to be following when that
Mm-hmm.
time comes. So curiosity, being an internal student, or have we in SEO hacker, how we call it is having a beginner's mindset. That is
Mm-hmm.
very important as a leader. That takes humility as well. So I would
True.
say humility is one of the biggest, most important attributes of being a leader. And we tackled that in the question earlier of
Yep.
what if it gets to your head. So you have to have the humility to know that I'm not the I'm not the alpha male here. I'm not the biggest name boss here around.
Mm-hmm.
I'm here to serve my people and to make sure I clear obstacles for them so they can do their best work. That's why you
Yep.
hired them. That's why you want a dream team. That's why you built this company. And if you don't have the humility, guess what happens? You yourself will burn your company to the ground. And that's the most horrifying thing that
Painful.
you're going to be telling your grandchildren, right? Someday.
Mm-hmm.
So it's humility. For Leon, curiosity. I would add another one. This also is very important for me: integrity.
Oh yeah.
You, as a leader,
Um,
should be a one man person. You have to practice the one man principle. Integrity, as a word, comes from the root word integer, which means one or whole. When you're not a whole person, you're different at home, you're different at work, and at work you're different with person A and person B. That's a red flag. You're not going to be a leader for long, and you're
mhm.
also going to be burning your company to the ground, because no one likes a person who is not authentic. No one
True.
likes a person who
Very
is
true.
not authentic. So integrity is very important, both with your people and your clients.
Mm-hmm.
Clients will not hire someone or a company who they know doesn't have integrity. In integrity, the problem with it is it's either you have it or you don't, because it's either one or zero. If your decimal places, it's also not being an integer. That's also not being an integer. So that's
Mm-hmm.
also not integrity. Okay. Question from Pam: how do you continue to grow and develop as a leader? All right. I think we
Yeah.
answered. Maybe we can answer this in a different perspective. Like, Leon, what kind of books and podcasts would you recommend? Of course, there's the Virtual Ate by Leon, and you guys have to tune in both on TikTok and YouTube. That's gonna help you out. What other books and podcasts would you recommend?
So for specifically for being a leader, not for being an entrepreneur, but specifically being a leader, There's Dare to Lead by Brene Brown. There's Brene Brown's also like her podcast and the way that she interviews. There are TED Talks, because literally when you do a TED Talk, you are being the thought leader for this particular thing that you're telling these people. So when you watch a TED Talk, you're even if it's an idea that you are totally opposed, you find it boring, you can see the subtle things that they're doing to be able to convey the thought that they are trying to convince people of. So that's why I love recommending people just watch TED Talks. You'll get ideas from people, but you also see the little nuances, or little things that they do to convey that authority and being a leader, at the same time being open to other people saying things about that. Um, Other books, so many books that I've read that I now have to like really, really like think about them. Um, there's This is an interesting, for me, it is a leadership book in a way, because you have to learn how to manage yourself before you can manage other people. Atomic Habits by James Clear, just
I
because
love
like it
that book.
gives you, yeah, it gives you the clarity of like what it is, like how you want to show up with your habits, like building that up so you can show up in the way that you want to. And it's just, again, it's just leadership, like self leadership. You have to start in that way. Speaking of self leadership, there's a book called The 1 Minute Manager and Self Leadership and The 1 Minute Manager. Both books, I actually gift them to our clients. Anytime that we have a client from the US or Australia, I actually send them an Amazon copy of that book, because it's such a good book when it comes to how you can think of given feedback, and also the way that you handle different employees at different parts of their careers as well. So both of those books are really good. More management, not really super leadership, but will help you, of course, when it comes to giving feedback. Um, I don't know, Shauna, how long do we have? Because I have so many books and podcasts that I just follow. Like, how long do you want to have me keep going? But those are my top recommendations. But like,
I
I just
think
have
that
more.
it's gonna take them like 2 weeks to a month to finish those already that you
Yeah.
mentioned. So that's pretty good. I know of one very boring leadership book, and that's CEO at 22. I don't know if you guys have ever
I
heard it,
haven't heard
but
that. Yeah.
you can buy it from Lazada and Shop. No, I wrote that book. I'm just kidding. So
Ah, I didn't know that. I'm gonna look it up now. I'm gonna open up my Lazada and like research and grab your book. There you go.
yeah, so that those are my leadership principles. If you're interested to know, um, you can get it online. Some of the books that I'm a John Max, just a disclaimer, I'm a John Maxwell certified speaker and coach. So of course, John Maxwell books, such as the 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership, that's always where I
Really
ask
good book.
my
Yeah.
regular team members to start.
Mm-hmm.
And when you want growth, because one of the last questions here is about growth, but we don't have time to go through that. The 15 Invaluable Laws of Growth by John Maxwell, that's fantastic. Leon and I mentioned earlier some stuff by Jim Collins. You might want to look into his books as well, like Good to Great or Built to Last. I know those
Oh
are
yeah.
entrepreneurship books, but there's tons of leadership principles there, like the Stockdale paradox. That's a really good lesson, especially during this time of pandemic chaos and crisis. And there's tons more books that you could read. There's The Seven Habits by Stephen Covey. There's so many
Mm-hmm.
books, and we have read them. The fantastic thing is Leanne and I have read a lot of them, and we do recommend them. It's the same books that you're going to be seeing in fully booked
Oh yeah.
entrepreneurship leadership section, right? But they're timeless and they're there for a reason. Grab them. And I think a lot of fully booked books are on Shopee right now, because I bought
Mm-hmm.
some there. So you guys could check that out on Shopee. Make sure to invest in yourself, like what you're doing now.
Yep.
Mitch says CEO 22. Thanks, Mitch. Thanks so much.
I found it now
You're
on Shopee.
yeah.
I see it right now.
You're the one person in 70 billion. So but it's all right. Um, Thank you for that. So guys, that's all the time we have. Of course, I always want to respect my co-host's time. We're actually a little bit overtime, 8 minutes overtime, but I learned a lot. I hope you guys have learned a lot as well. We do have our YouTube channel and our Spotify podcast. If you're not yet subscribed, please subscribe to YouTube. That's leadme.ph/YouTube. And we also have leadme.ph/Spotify. If you're an auditory listener, you want to listen while driving, taking a shower, exercising. I'm saying all of the things that I'm doing while listening to podcasts. If you're the same as I am, then go ahead and follow us on Spotify as well. And with Leon, look her up, the virtual ate. For those of you TikTokers, she's there. For those of you who
Mhm.
prefer the longer version on YouTube, she's there. Go ahead and subscribe as well. That's it. Thank you so much for your time. And we are going to change the schedule a little bit. I had my meeting with the leadership stack team earlier, and they're telling me you guys are having so much of me already that we should do it twice a week, twice a month instead of once a week. So we might shift it to twice a month instead of once a week. We're not yet 100% sure, but I'm giving you guys a heads up right now. If you haven't joined the Leadership Stack um, Facebook group yet, please do join. And I don't have, oh, I do have the link here. There you go. Leadme.ph/Facebook. That's the Facebook group. We have 105 new members today. I hope you also do join that Facebook group where we'll be posting stuff and you can post your questions there and we'll be getting to answering them here. I couldn't say every Thursday night anymore, right? Can I? That's my bunso.
Cutie boy.
Yeah,
Hello.
my youngest boy, Sage. All right. All right. Hey, thanks, Leon, for joining. And thank you,
Yeah,
everyone who's
it's
still
fine.
here, tuned in. I really appreciate you guys. And I'll see you next week. Take care.